Hello everyone, I'm Hui Ting Huang with Canfax Research Services. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about the future farm scenarios of the Canadian cow-calf cost of production network 2022. The COP network was first launched in 2021, and we have collected production and financial information from over 180 cow-calf producers across Canada. 2022 was our second year of data collection. Over 70 producers participated in focus group in the spring of 2022. Based on the data collected in the past 2 years, 46 benchmark farms were established to represent different regions and production systems across Canada. The COP network is not just a benchmarking exercise, but also includes the development of future farm scenarios that estimates what it would cost to achieve different performance goals. In focus groups, producers brainstormed the possibilities on adopting new practices and technologies and discussed where incremental improvements could be made around productivities, input costs, and marketing strategies. Based on the discussions, future farm scenarios are selected for each benchmark farm. Some farms have one scenario and others have more. And what our team did in terms of analysis was to estimate the potential cost and benefit of implementing the selected practice over a 5-year period. In this presentation, I will focus on the 2 scenarios selected by multiple farms in 2022. If you're interested in the scenarios developed in 2021, please check out our previous webinar on the Beef and Cattle Research Council's website. In 2022, over 50 future farm scenarios were developed. Like the previous year, increasing weaning weight and rotational grazing continue to be the 2 hot topics. For increasing weaning weight, we took a deep dive in shortening calving season scenario last year. So here we are going to focus on the water system scenario, which could also increase weaning weight. And for rotational grazing, we also took a deep dive last year to identify the key factors for the feasibility of rotational grazing, focusing on the cost-saving benefit of an extended grazing season. And this year, we expanded our analysis to consider the potential stacked benefit from a water system and also consider the funding opportunities that could offset some of the upfront costs. So let's take a look at our first scenario, water system. In this scenario, we modeled the impact of an operation adding a solar-powered water system, assuming cattle on this operation had direct water access to the dugout before. And here are some assumptions. Based on literature, we assume that after adding the water system, calves gain an extra 0.09 pounds per day. So if a calf is weaned at around 200 days old, they will be 18 pounds heavier. The upfront cost of the water system is assumed at $7,500 for a solar-powered pump system in year 1, and if a new well is needed, it costs an additional $13,000 to $30,000, and maintenance cost is set at $100 per year. And it should be noted that the cost of a water system can vary greatly. First of all, there are many different types of water system, such as solar-powered pump, wind-powered, or underground pipelines. So the cost of a solar-powered water system, for example, may range from $4,000 to $15,000, depending on the herd size, lift, and other variables. And for a new well, it could range from under $10,000 to over $30,000. So depending on the location and specification. So our assumption may not be applicable for your farm. And also for drilling a well, producers must follow government requirements for licensing. So that's something important to keep in mind. And in terms of cattle prices, we assume calf prices are steady with 2021 levels, and we also consider the potential price slide due to heavier weaning weight. For example, when weaning weight shift from the 400 to 500 pound weight class to 500 to 600 pound class, calf prices on a per pound basis are adjusted lower according to the provincial average. So for this scenario, the major additional cost is the upfront investment in the water system in year 1 and the annual maintenance costs, while the major economic benefit is the additional revenue from heavier weaning weight. The net benefit is the additional revenue minus the upfront and maintenance costs. The chart here on the right shows how the net benefit would look like over a 5-year period. Typically, the net benefit is negative in year 1 due to the upfront cost, but then it rebounds in the following years. The blue line here represents the average net benefit over the 5-year period. When the line is above 0, it means the farm can pay off the upfront cost within 5 years. Now let's look at the results for the 3 farms we modeled, including 2 in Alberta, that's AB8 and AB9, and 1 in BC, that's BC4. These farms are very similar in terms of weaning age and are at around 200 to 220 days. So weaning weights are estimated to increase by 18 to 20 pounds as a result of the water system. And for this scenario, without a new well, the upfront cost is $7,500 for all 3 farms. The blue lines here are all above 0, meaning these farms can pay off their upfront investment in less than 5 years. However, even with the same upfront cost and similar weight gains, their payoff periods varies from 1.3 to 2.7 years, while their average net benefits varies from $11 to $21 per cow. So the question is, what makes the difference? The first factor is herd size. When herd size increases, the upfront cost on a per cow basis declines and results in a shorter payoff period and higher net benefit. For example, for BC4 with a smaller herd at 88 cows, their initial cost per cow in year 1 is $85. This drops to $47 for AB8 with 161 cows and drops further to $20 per cow for AB9 with 376 cows. It is important to keep in mind that these economies of scale are constrained by the water system's capacity. If the herd size exceeds the system's maximum capacity and requires additional equipment, unit cost per cow will increase. The second factor we want to look at is calf prices. For Alberta 8 and BC4, we kept calf prices steady with the baseline, while for AB9, we factor in the price slide on heavier weaning weight, with average price per pound dropped by 2% compared to the baseline. Therefore, although Alberta 9 has the similar increase in weaning weights, the additional revenue from those weights gained are smaller than the other 2 farms and therefore has a lower net benefit per cow. Now let's look at the scenario with a new well. This is where the differences in upfront costs kicked in. Here we assume a new well costs $13,000 for the 2 Alberta farms and higher at $30,000 for BC4. Alberta 8 and 9 can still pay off the upfront cost in less than 5 years. But for BC4, due to the higher cost of the well, the payoff period is estimated at 14 years, which basically makes this scenario unfeasible from an economic standpoint. Given the variability in water system costs, it is critical to know the cost of a system for a specific operation. It is also important to pencil out a budget based on current market conditions and targeted payoff period. We crunched some numbers and estimated the break-even cost or budget for a 5-year paid-off period for different herd sizes and calf price levels, assuming an extra 18-pound winning weight. The chart here shows as herd size and calf prices increase, the break-even cost also increase. Since the second half of 2022, we have seen very strong cattle prices. Alberta's steer price jumped to over $2.60 per pound in the fall compared to $2.10 a year ago. So for an operation with 150 cows, when calf prices increase from $2.10 per pound to $2.50 per pound, the budget could increase by almost 20%. When we look at the number of years to pay off the upfront cost, larger herd size and higher cattle prices generally means a shorter payoff period. If we assume the water system costs $10,000, when calf prices increase from $2.10 per pound to $2.50 per pound, the time taken to pay off the upfront cost reduced by about 20%. When it comes to herd size, the economies of scale are constrained by the maximum capacity of a water system. Assuming the capacity of a water system can supply water for up to 400 cow-calf pairs, when herd size exceeds 400 pairs, an extra facility will be needed and cost per cow will increase, and so will the payoff period, and it is shown in this chart here. So just to recap some of the key points about this water system scenario. First, the current higher cattle prices make water system more affordable and result in shorter number of years to pay back initial investment. And it is important to keep in mind that heavier calves could bring lower prices per pound. And in general, net benefits increases as herd size increase, but this is restricted by the capacity of the water system. Therefore, it is important to match the water requirement of the farm with water system capacity to reach the optimum utility rate. And it is also important to know the cost of a water system that fits the operation. While we talk a lot about economics here, the potential benefits of implementing a water system are more than just economics. There are other factors to consider, such as water source protection, animal health, riparian habitat protection. It is important to put the economic, animal health, and environmental factors together when considering a water system. Now let's shift gear and take a quick look at our second future farm scenario, extend grazing season through rotational grazing. As I mentioned earlier, this is an expansion on the scenario developed in year 1. This year, we added the upfront cost for a shallow buried pipeline water system. And look at what is the impact if part of the initial cost is covered by funding programs, specifically the On-Farm Climate Action Fund, OFCAF. And also, we consider the potential stacked benefit of extra winning weight from the water system for the rotational grazing. So for each farm, we have 3 scenarios here. The first one is the basic scenario with no additional funding and no extra winning weight. The second scenario is with additional funding. And the third one is with funding and also heavier winning weight, assuming cattle had direct water access before. So for assumption, we hold crop yield, crop and cattle prices steady with the baseline to eliminate some of the market volatilities and environmental factor. We also assume a longer grazing season or shorter winter feeding period is achieved by greater grazing management. This requires the upfront purchase of a portable electric fencing system to allow for smaller pasture sizes and also a shallow buried pipeline system for water distribution. The cost of the water system is assumed at $1.3 per foot with custom installation, and the total cost varies depending on the pasture size. And we also assume there is additional labor required for rotational grazing. We assume weekly moves with an additional 3 hours of labor per week. And we assume a 10% increase in stocking rate with a 13 to 17 days longer grazing season. And for the scenarios with extra winning weight, we assume an extra 0.09 pounds daily gain. And in terms of the assumptions regarding to off-calf funding, it is customized based on the associated delivery organization. For example, for the Alberta farms, we referred to the program delivered by ARDAR, the Result-Driven Agriculture Research. And for Manitoba, we referred to the Prairie West Watershed Climate Program, PWCP. And for the Quebec farms, we refer to the Canadian Forage and Grassland Association off-calf Advanced Rotational Grazing Program. The major additional cost in this scenario is the upfront investment in fencing and water system in year 1, and the additional labor for rotational grazing. And for the major economic benefit, it's reduced feed cost, labor and fuel from fewer winter feeding days. And for the scenarios with extra winning weight, there will be additional revenue. The chart on the right here shows the change in net benefits related to rotational grazing over a 5-year period. Similar to the water system scenario we've seen earlier, the net profit typically dropped in the first year due to the upfront fencing costs and water system costs, then rebounds in the following years. Now let's take a look at the results. This chart shows the average net benefit in a 5-year period. The blue bar are the basic scenario, and the orange bars added off-calf fundings, and the gray bars added additional revenue from heavier winning weight in addition to off-calf funding. Let's focus on the blue bars first. The estimated net benefits were generally negative in the 5-year period due to the high upfront cost. This is especially true for farms with larger pasture areas that required larger investments in water system, and as well as the farm with smaller herd that increases the cost per cow. QC7 is the only one with positive net benefit because this farm purchases a portion of their winter feeds, which is typically more expensive than homegrown feeds. So a shorter winter feeding period resulted in more saving on feed costs. Moving on to the orange bars, when off-calf funding is added to the scenario with 70 to 85% reimbursement of the eligible cost, this significantly reduced the upfront cost, making this scenario feasible for 4 out of 6 farms. And when we look at the gray bars, if the new water system results in extra winning weight on calves, the stacked benefit of reduced winter feeding costs and extra revenue from heavy winning weight makes the scenario profitable for most of the farms. This chart here shows the break-even upfront cost for different herd size and cost-saving levels. For example, if an operation has 200 cows and it expects to save about $20 per cow with an extended grazing season, an upfront investment of about $20,000 would be feasible for a 5-year payoff period. And as herd size and cost-saving levels increases, the budget can increase as well. From an economic standpoint, the feasibility of a rotational grazing system depends on the amount of upfront investment, the herd size, the potential cost savings, and revenue gains, as well as the capital and labor availability on the farm. Operations that do not have a water system could see extra benefit with increased weaning weight. And in terms of funding opportunities such as OFCAF, they can help producers finance the development and implementation of rotational grazing. It should be noted that each province has a different agency that is administrating the rotational grazing funding, and their coverage requirements and application process differs. So it is very important for producers to contact their local delivery agent for details and assistance in developing their plan and application. So this wraps up the 2 future farm scenarios for today. But there are a lot more to explore. Please check out our website for more information about the COP network and find summaries for all the future farm scenarios there. Thank you so much for listening.